you've been thinking about full-time RVing, or maybe you're just curious about how much it costs. Well, today we're gonna dive into everything, every single penny. 1 year, thousands of miles, and a mountain of receipts later, I've tracked everything to break it down for you on how much full-time RVing costs. We're gonna break everything into 4 major categories. 1, fixed expenses. 2, living essentials. 3, travel expenses. And 4, lifestyle costs. Do you have a guess as to how much we might have spent full-time RVing over the last year? Leave a comment below and see how close you come at the end of the video on your guess. Let's get started. Let's talk about some of the fixed expenses. These are non-negotiable things that really don't change depending on where you are or what you're doing. These are going to be things like your truck and RV insurance. Also, this will include a payment for an RV or truck, or maybe your motorhome or your van. Because this is so variable and depends on what kind of rig you have, what your credit's like, how much you have for a down payment, or if you can pay off your rig completely, we're not going to go into this just because it is so incredibly variable depending on who you are and what your situation is. Our truck insurance is rather spendy, and again, this is one of those things that's really going to depend on what kind of rig you have, the value of your rig, and what state you are insured in. But to give you an idea, our truck insurance is almost $200 a month and costs about $2,400 a year, so huge expense. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the RV insurance, and this can really vary a lot depending on what kind of rig you have, the value of your rig, but also what state you are insured in. So we are insured in Oregon, and we do have full-time RV insurance through Progressive. So that's another thing that you're going to want to make sure is that you are getting full-timers insurance, because nobody wants to get in a fight with insurance about whether your rig is covered when you are in an accident or if you are in an accident. So our full-time RV insurance costs us about $96 per month. Our phone bill that each of us have with Verizon comes in at $165 per month for both of our lines. What perfect timing. This is our Starlink internet. It costs us $150 over the last 12 months. But it did just go up to $165 a month. Let's just take a minute to talk about laundry. So this can be a little bit of a hidden cost for a lot of RVers that they don't necessarily think about, but unless you are lucky enough to have laundry in your rig, you are going to have to visit a laundromat or depend on friends or family to do your laundry. So over the last year, we averaged about $30 a month at laundromats to do our laundry. The total for this added to $322 a year. Okay, so now let's move on to the things that vary every month but are still absolutely essential. Things like food, propane, and water. These are basics that you can't live without, whether you're parked in a campground in the desert or you're out boondocking in the mountains. A few of these are going to vary greatly depending on what kind of campground you're in or whether you're out boondocking. Okay, so your propane in your RV is used mostly for heating as well as cooking. And if you're boondockers like we are, it's also used potentially for your fridge as well as your hot water heater if you cannot run those on electric. So the biggest use of propane is by far the heater. So that is one reason why we tend to try and go into warmer places, is it uses a whole lot less propane to keep the rig warm than if you're in colder places. To give you an idea, our highest month that we spent on propane was $120, and our lowest month is $20. So over the year, we spent $617, and that equates to about $51 a month. Okay. Let's talk about this bad boy here, the septic black gray tanks as well as our water. So because we are boondockers, we do not readily have available to us a water spigot and a dump station like you would at a campground. So we need to get creative in finding those available to us, and sometimes that costs us money. So this category is going to include our drinking water, which we do purchase, as well as any fees associated with dumping or filling our tanks. So over the last 12 months, we have spent $542 to fill our tanks and dump our tanks, which equates to about $45 a month. Okay, first off, let me just start with saying that we love to eat. We do not hold back on our groceries, and we've been known to frequent a fine dining establishment on occasion. So this is also a super variable category depending on your lifestyle choices and what you choose to do as far as food goes. We have spent over the last year just under $10,000 on our groceries, totaling about $786 per month. On food in restaurants, we have spent $7,700 the last year for an average of $647 a month on restaurants. I feel the need to defend ourselves here on the restaurant cost. For us, going to new restaurants when we're in new places is part of experiencing the area, and we really enjoy seeing what local food scenes are about. So we do tend to spend a lot in restaurants, but that is part of what we personally prioritize for exploring new areas. Next up is going to be our travel expenses. This is what we're talking about getting from point A to point B. And this is going to vary a lot depending on how you travel and where you travel. But let's take a look and see what our yearly cost was. Depending on how much you travel, fuel is another one of those super variable expenses that you can control by slowing down or speeding up your rate of travel. How much you're spending on fuel also really depends on what state you're filling up. We're looking at you, California. We tend to try and stay in places for about 2 weeks at a minimum. Part of that is just to give us time to explore an area, but also it really drastically reduces the amount that we are spending on diesel. So over the last 12 months, we have spent an average of $530 on diesel. RV maintenance is key. This category covers everything from fixing leaks to replacing a tire every once in a while. We have spent about $200 a month maintaining the RV. The biggest chunk that we spent in our RV maintenance category was when we had the roof resealed over the summer, and that was $1,600. So because our truck is pretty new, our repairs are relatively minimal, and so is our maintenance. But we have, over the last 12 months, averaged $53 a month to maintain the RV, totaling $640 for the year. And this is going towards things like oil changes, which usually are about every 3 months that we're needing to change our oil, as well as fuel filters, which ends up being about once a year that we need to change our fuel filter. All right, now let's get into the fun stuff. These are the things that make RVing memorable, but they can also come with a really big price tag. So Jason and I tend to be pretty frugal in this area, and we like to lean towards doing more free things such as hiking. But based on your personal preferences, you can spend a whole lot more in this category than what we spent. But let's go ahead and get into what we spent in our lifestyle costs. First up, we're going to have our entertainment section, and this is going to include things like excursions, events, and park passes. In this category, for the entire year, we spent $660. Also in this category, we're going to include souvenirs, so magnets, stickers, t-shirts, whatever it may be that you get from a place. And in that category, we spent for the year $469. The next one that we're going to talk about is our memberships, and we have two memberships. We have Escapees and we have Harvest Hosts. So there's a lot of other memberships that you can have as an RVer, such as Thousand Trails or Passport America, and these tend to give you discounts or free nights at campgrounds. But since we tend to avoid campgrounds and stay out in the desert and boondock, these just don't make sense for us to have. So we just have the two, Harvest Hosts and Escapees. Escapers we tend to use more as a social aspect, so we attend events every once in a while, and that's what we use that membership for. Our Harvest Hosts we usually use when we're doing a long haul drive, and we just need a quick overnight stop somewhere. That is when we tend to stay at Harvest Hosts, so wineries, breweries, museums, whatnot. Our Escapees membership runs us $49.95 per year, and our Harvest Host membership is $149. Well, there you have it, an entire year's worth of expenses for full-time RVing. Are you ready for the big reveal on how much we spent over the last year full-time RVing? Our total spent for the entire year was $38,182.30. Compare that to your answer that you put in the comments earlier. Were you close? Is this more or less than you would have thought? I'm curious what you thought a full-time RVer spent on the road and how that compares to what we actually spent. Your costs vary greatly depending on what you personally prioritize, and you can spend a lot more or a lot less than we did in particular categories like restaurants or excursions. Remember that the most valuable part of RVing is the memories, and that is absolutely priceless. So the memories that we're able to make along the way make every penny spent well worth it. If you're at all thinking about full-time RVing and this lifestyle, knowing what to expect financially is really going to help you make a solid plan. So are you ready to hit the road with us? Leave a comment below and let me know what you think of RV costs. We'll see you all next week. Cheers!